Now, keep your texts and comments coming in. I've a lot to read out. Firstly, I'm going to go straight to Kevin Kearsey. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning, Damien.
Thanks very much for joining us, Kevin. IFA County Chairperson, the protest is continuing in Dublin, as we heard on the bulletin there a short while ago. Why are farmers protesting in Dublin, Kevin?
Well, look, Damien, I suppose, it's not a good time. I appreciate it's not a good time to be protesting. It's coming up to Christmas. Shoppers are hitting Dublin now, wanting to do their shopping. It's difficult on the shop owners. It's difficult on the workers working in the shops and working around the centre of Dublin. It's very difficult. But I suppose we have to go back to the reason why this has happened. And it's a follow-on from what happened in the summer at the meat factories throughout the country. And that is the continuous poor income that beef farmers are getting for their product. And I'll have to say factories have not been helpful again this time round, insofar as the price of beef, as the index has shown now, has increased throughout Europe, and we haven't followed suit, which is a real pity.
Well, that's the next question I was going to ask you, Kevin. Have you not got what you wanted from the protests over the last few months? Like, the deal was signed. Was it not supposed to be a lot better?
A deal was signed, yes. A deal was signed. In part of the deal was that a task force was to be set up where the industry would be followed on a continuous basis, and pricing and so on would have been followed. But that task force hasn't met, and the reason it hasn't met is because of these injunctions that are still being placed on a number of farmers by one company, C&D Foods, and C&D Foods, as you know, are not part of MII, and therefore they are not part of the. They're not part of signing the agreement that was agreed at the end of the protest there in the summer. So, we all know too that's owned by Larry Goodman. So, I think a lot of responsibility goes with the Goodman family here.
Difficult situation. And in terms of tactics, Kevin, like, you'll have a lot of people in Dublin today, maybe people from Waterford going up shopping in Dublin and stuff like that, and people trying to get to work, ordinary workers, as they say, discommoded. Is it right to disrupt business in our nation's in our nation's capital?
That's absolutely correct. And we understand fully what beef farmers are going through. But we're also we have to bear in mind the consumers and our fellow consumers in the country, that not to discommode them, as I said earlier on. And look, at IFA level, always, whenever we had disputes, we always took those issues into account when we were having disputes and who we'd hit, and we always had a definite exit.
Yeah, like this is
strategy.
This is maximum. This is maximum disruption, Kevin, is it not?
It is, and I suppose, look, for those people who have organised this protest, that is the reason to drive home the message to the minister and the meat factories to the plight that beef farmers are in. Again, I would say the minister could have been a little bit more helpful too in pushing forward the task force and getting it meeting and coming up with conclusions. And look at what we all want in the end is a lift in the meat prices, and that hasn't happened. And therefore, the income for those beef farmers are still at an all-time low, and a lot of them can't just keep in business.
And we're going to be talking to one of them now. Kevin Kearsey, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome, Dave.
Thank you very much. Kevin Kearsey, IFA County Chairperson. I'm going to be talking to Donald Murphy in a second. Firstly, I want to read out one of the texts. This will make you shiver, lads. A caller rang in to 051 846 123. Rats. Her grandfather was blind. They used to take it in turns to bring him shopping. He started buying tins of cat food, but he didn't have a cat. When they asked him why, he said the cat's next door. Eating me out of house and home. This went on for quite a while and was costing him a small fortune in cat food. Then one night, when the weather was bad, her father went to check on him. There was around 60 rats in the kitchen. Her grandfather was playing with them, petting them, not realising they were cats. The house and the garden were totally infested. The poor man is dead now, but they still send a shiver remembering it. The houses in the city, there were derelict houses all around him. So the man thought he was feeding cats and he was feeding rats. Now, Donald Murphy, farmer in Dunhill, good morning.
Good morning, Damien, and not too bad. Terrible weather, coming onto water falling.
You're not up in Dublin protesting this morning?
I'm not, Damien. I would find it difficult. I find it difficult because when you have cattle in sheds in Dublin, it's 2 hours away. They have to be fed like everybody else has to be fed. So it's just difficult.
But
I'd love to be there, though.
You'd love to be up. You'd love to be up there, would you?
I would, yeah. I'd love to be there with my tractor. I'd love to be there, and I'd block every street in the place because something has to happen. Something has to happen.
Block every street in the place. Stop people going about doing their ordinary day's work. Hard working people in Dublin that have enough stress and strain anyway.
Damien, look, listen to me. I don't mean that as I said it. Something has to happen for the farmer in this country at the moment because the dairy man is doing okay. The beef man struggling. Glanbia came out a couple of weeks ago with the price of green barley off the combine at €128 a tonne.
I saw that, yeah.
That is the same price that was Glanbia paid back in 1984. Now, Damien, you don't have to be an economist to know that 1984 and 2019, what's that? That 25 years, 35 years?
Yeah.
You don't have to be an economist to know that we can't survive on that type of prices. And the same thing applies in the beef trade. Beef trade is absolutely out. It's on the floor. And Damien, consider this. My wife went into a supermarket in Tremor a couple of weeks ago and bought a bit of fillet steak, 240 grams of fillet steak.
Right.
The steak sandwich. And she paid €39 something cent a kilo for it. Who do they think they're fooling? Like, it was actually super value. I'm not afraid to say I actually challenged them on it. And that's what my wife paid for fillet.
And what answer did you get? I suppose the store manager is not going to give you an answer, really.
The store manager, he was the duty manager. He spoke to me and he said that if my wife bought pre-packed fillet steak, it would have come at €20-something a kilo because it was bought at the butcher's counter. But say, okay, there's only 10% of the animal. Sorry, there's only 1% of the animal is fillet steak.
Yes.
There's only about 3 kilos of fillet steak on the average heifer. So, but she still paid €39 a kilo. Like, who's fooling who? That farmer who produced that animal got $3.55 a kilo plus his 20 cents quality assurance. He got $3.77. Like, it's unsustainable, Dave.
Donald, you had protests in the last 3 months at the slaughterhouses. You had a series of protests. What's happened with that deal? That deal was supposed to sort everything out.
Well, Damien, that deal hasn't done anything because there's a lot of issues arose out of that. The backlog, there's still a backlog of cattle there that's not gone off the system. If the backlog of cattle was gone, it might help the situation. But look, listen to me. The minister has messed around. The thing last night, they were on the television there last night about the farmers up there were saying that there's still 2 farmers injuncted by Larry Goodman's company up in the company doing the dog food up in Longford or Monaghan up that direction. And there's still 2 farmers injuncted up there. There's nothing happened in relation to these talks, these screenings we call them, people that were going to go in and set up and look at who was getting who out of the beef industry. Nothing has happened. Nothing has happened. Damien, the European Parliament and the Irish government decided there back in May of this year that they were putting out a package a rescue package there for beef farmers that lost money last year. That still hasn't arrived. That's 6 months down the road. Name of God Almighty, who can survive like that? Nobody can survive like that. Like, there's absolutely, it takes too long for things to happen in this country. Like, and the ministers went out in the street in Dublin this morning at 7:30 and spoke to 20 or 30 farmers. Like, who does he think he is? He refused to meet him last night, and then he went out this morning at 7:30 when the negotiating party wasn't there. Like, I don't know, but like the way things is going at the moment, and I said this at the IFA presidential election meeting, the way things is going at the moment, there'll be very few farmers left farming in the next 3 or 4 years because it's lost. Now, people think that Murphy is crying again. Maybe Murphy is crying again, but someone has to cry. Somebody has to cry. Because, if I asked you, and to none of my business, but like, would you work for the same salary you worked for back in 1984 or 1994?
No.
Or 2004?
No.
Well, then why should Donald Murphy, as a beef farmer, have to work for the same money that he's getting, or my neighbour Ned Morrissey, a grain grower? Why should he have to work for €128 a tonne, the same as what he got in 1984. Like, our costing,
and the only way of doing it is protest. You think there's going to be more protest, Donald?
There will be more protests, but Damien, before I leave you go, the one thing I will say, and I say this myself, this is not the policy of anybody else. The European Parliament have a lot to answer for. They are, like you talk to your own wife or talk to any housewife in the country today, food was never as cheap. Never as cheap. And that is the European Parliament pushing the cheap food policy. Like, listen to our national radio station yesterday morning. There was a woman on from Wexford. One of the German stores are advertising turkeys at €8. Like, they refused to go on the national radio yesterday morning. There wasn't a spokesperson available. But there's a woman there from Wexford. She bought a couple of turkeys to produce for herself this year. She paid $5.50 for a 5-week-old, €5.50 for a 5-week-old bird, just a chicken, out from underneath the light or wherever old that is. She paid $5.50 for that bird as a chicken, and she reared them organically, bought organic food. And Sean O'Rourke on national radio asked her yesterday morning, how much would it have cost her to feed that bird? She said she would reckon about €50. Now, okay, if you had hundreds of birds, you'd feed them slightly cheaper, and maybe if you weren't feeding them organically. So this is the point I'm saying: cheap food, cheap food, cheap food. But we can't let it be the chicken grower or my neighbour, the tillage man, or Donald Murphy producing beef, or thousands of other farmers producing. We can't keep going as we're going. Okay, good luck to possibly the housewives are getting cheap food, but like it has to come to an end, I mean, because like the Lidls and the Aldis and the whole rest of them are just they're screwing. Excuse the expression. They're putting in the screw. They're tightening down the nut on the top of the producers in this country, and we just can't we can't sustain it. It's unsustainable. And whether the Minister for Agriculture sits up and smells the roses, or in Brussels, but I blame Brussels for a lot of this.
Something has to give. Donald Murphy.
Something has to give.
Donald, thanks for joining us this morning.
No problem. Thank you. Bye bye.
Now, keep your texts and comments coming in. You've just been listening to ads about Black Friday. We're going to talk to Denise Cusack in a second, and also to cyber psychologist Kieran McMahon about what shoppers can do to be safe online for Black Friday. Some of your texts first. Got a picture in there from a person showing a cat where somebody, the neighbours behind, had disturbed a large bank, and the rat was literally running around the garden, and the cat just looking at it. Damien, regarding that farmer, if farmers are poor, why are they buying fillet steak? Damien, men go shopping as well. That man shouldn't be saying that women know about food costs. Damien, as a non-farmer living in the city, I agree 100% with the fighting for a living and a fair wage. Without the farmers, we would be lost, says Tony. If the farmers can't make a living, says another person, sell up. They're sitting on a fortune of land. Another person says that if the IFA is right to disturb the capital, the same could be said if the same should happen in the capital of the South East, where Saturday afternoon marches in relation to hospital services. Damien, only for the cheap food policy we'd all be starved when the crash came in 2008. The self-employed builders had no one to turn to. The farmer will get his payment. So we've got mixed views coming in on that. Briefly as well, the interview we did with Tony earlier. Tony's nan and granddad rang to say they were very proud of Tony. That's Tony Kelly, and it has taken him great courage and guts to do what he did today. Thank you very much, Tony's nan and granddad. Appreciate you calling us on 051 846 123. Have your calls coming in about this item, because you may have a lot to say about it. We've got Denise Cusack on the line. Good morning, Denise.
Good morning, Damien.
And we also have Kieran McMahon, cyber psychologist. Good morning, Kieran.
Good morning, Damien.
Thanks very much for joining us. We'll talk to both of you. Firstly, Denise, you're with Ulster Bank, and also the issues relating to, I suppose, a survey and online security shopping. Tell us, what did this survey found?
I suppose, firstly, Damien, just to call out, and you mentioned it earlier, Black Friday, it's fast approaching, and it's I suppose, fast become a household Christmas shopping event in Ireland, and many of us, including those who may not normally do so, are now going online to try and grab a bargain. Now, the survey showed that people in Munster shop online more often than most Irish people, with over 69% shopping once a month. Now, look, on the very positive front, again, one of the highest scores in Munster, 82% of people felt that they've took the necessary precautions when shopping online. in terms of keeping themselves safe. But a little bit more concerning, what came out was that 1 in 12 would share their full online banking PINs and passwords, which is really concerning because that's like giving, your wallet with all your Christmas shopping money in it to a complete stranger.
Yeah.
With 20% as well saying they would click on a link if it promised a bargain. So that, again, was quite concerning.
Yeah, there are concerns there. We're going to come back to some of the advice that you have for online shoppers. Firstly, Kieran, what is there a certain psychology that comes with online shopping, the pressures of a deadline? Like this whole Black Friday thing is a complete marketing gimmick, isn't it? It started in America, it's taken on really big here, and it's the hype of it. It's so hyped.
It is. Thanks, Damien. The first thing I'd say, first of all, I think it's really important and welcome that Ulster Bank have carried out this research and are showing some leadership in this space, because it is a very tricky one for consumers to navigate. So raising awareness around this is really important. So in terms of, like, as you say, the Black Friday event, it comes down to, in my mind, the psychology comes down to two. There's a number of factors, but the two main ones are, as you say, the deadline aspect. And this is, it's coming to the end of November, so it's one big shopping event before you come into Christmas. Everybody's trying to get a bargain. Everybody's trying to save money when they're buying presents. And the thing is, when we're faced with a deadline, what essentially happens in your decision-making process is that it becomes less logical and a bit more affective or a bit more emotional. So if you think about it, like there recently I was buying a drill, for a few bits and bobs around the house.
Yep.
And I was kind of weighing it up. And I was like, well, do I need the hammer action? Do I need cordless? Do I need all of these attachments? And you sort of, like, what's the price? And you sort of work it out logically and you come to a conclusion. Now, for the psychology of this is that it actually takes a long time to make a decision like that. It's nearly calculation. It's nearly like doing maths. But when we were actually in the shop doing this, my wife and kids with me, and the boys started screaming because they're toddlers and they wanted to go home. So I had to make a decision very quickly. And when you make a decision, when you have a deadline coming up and you have to make a decision quickly, you just go with your gut. So I just picked the one that was on the top of the stack and that was cheaply priced and that I liked the look of. And so that's basically what's happening at Black Friday, is because of the deadline, it's stopping you from thinking critically, it's stopping you from thinking logically, and it's making you go with your gut.
Okay.
The thing is, in this sort of space, it can be good, but it's used by scammers and fraudsters to make you pick things that you mightn't really have thought through.
Yeah. Denise, you're Ulster Bank's Community Protection Advisor. Give me some specific advice, some specific ways that our listeners can be vigilant and can be careful this Friday or any time that they're shopping online.
Okay. For me, I have a top 5, Damien, and the first one would be to shop websites that are known and that you are familiar with. I would say always to read reviews around the item that you're looking to purchase, as well as on the website if you're not familiar with it. Choose secure checkout. So look out for that green padlock, because that will give you peace of mind that there's extra encryption there, but also to where the website offers secure payment methods such as PayPal or Stripe. Don't divulge unnecessary personal information, Damien, and especially noting those PINs and passwords. Remember, they are extremely precious information, and never divulge your full PIN or password to anybody. And lastly, what I would say, and this supports our Friends Against Scams campaign as well, which is all around educating around fraud and scams, to stop and think before you click, and remember that if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is.
Okay, some good advice there. I'll let you go. Denise Cusack, thanks very much for joining us this morning. Thank you. Kieran, can I ask you, you do get retailers quite annoyed that people will come into their shops, go and check out, as you say, the drills and different things, and then go or try a jacket on and then go off and buy it online. That's another thing that is difficult for retailers, obviously, to go along. Do you think we are on an inexorable road to online shopping mecca, that it's all going to be online in the next few years?
Well, I don't know, actually, really. I think it's a really interesting one. And one of the sort of things about the difference between shopping in the shop and shopping online is that basically when you're going through the shop, you can look at the price, but to actually find out all of the bits of information about the different items you're shopping about, you kind of have to scratch below the surface. So like if you're in a clothes shop, you don't see the price there straight away. You have to sort of, lift the jacket up and find the price tag.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're online, it's very much an information overload. So there's all of the information is there, is presented in front of you. And this is the kind of thing around Black Friday. So I think in some ways it can be useful, in other ways it isn't. But I think this is how the scams kind of work on Black Friday, is because you're overloaded with information when you're online. So that kind of means that you're sort of more likely to go with your gut in a deadline situation. And just to sort of go back to something that Denise said there, I mean, it's the thing about this is to sort of stop and think. And one of the results in the survey was that, as she said, that there was a lot of people think that they've made all of the necessary precautions, but actually, when you drill down into it, they probably haven't. And this is another sort of feature of psychology that you often find. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Is where people are very overconfident about their abilities, but actually, when you scratch below the surface, you find that they're actually quite low in their abilities. And this is something that I think your listeners should be aware of when in coming up to Black Friday, and is to basically think about we're not really focused on you as the individual listening to this and the mistakes you might make. If you think about the people in your family, your friends and family, who might spend a lot of time online or might want to go online for a bargain around this time of the year. And this is why this is really important for Ulster Bank, to reach out and to talk to people around you who might be at risk of this and ask them just to stop and think about what they're getting into. And if it seems too good to be true, then it probably is.
Probably is. Kieran, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Not at all. A pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Kieran McMahon there, cyber psychologist. What do you think? Let us know. Do you shop differently if you're shopping online? Is there a different psychology that goes into it? Are you one of these people that likes shopping online? Or do you try to not shop online and support local businesses? And then there's some local businesses that have a very good online presence. They supplement it very well. I can think of businesses out in Tramore and different places in Dungarvan. Damien, a text in: would those that don't know the facts please refrain from making ridiculous comments about farmers? They are protesting for the future of rural Ireland. Coming up, we are talking to a man who has a big future ahead of him, and a Waterford company founded only 4 years ago and is already being approved for one of the major stock exchanges in Europe. Now, keep your texts and comments coming in 083 333 975. You can call Audrey on 051 846 123. Damien, I just heard the end of your conversation regarding Tony Kelly about anxiety. It's something I suffer from. I listened to your repeat show tonight, and to anybody who's listening to this after midnight, especially in any of the factories around, hello to everybody. But I don't understand podcasts. I'm sure I can do it if I knew what it was. And this is from Rose. Rose, podcasts for a lot of people are a very simple thing, but for others they're this mad thing out in the ethers. Isn't that it, John? They don't know.
Absolutely.
So very simply, a podcast is another way of listening to a radio station or a song or a programme, and different ways of broadcasting. So there are certain websites and certain apps on your phone, if you have a smartphone, that you can download and you can listen to the podcast. So there's a thing called Spotify, which a lot of people know about. There's iTunes. There's other ways of going straight onto a website, onto the WLR website, for example, and listen back in a kind of a chunk, which might be seen as a podcast. So it's just a simple, different way of listening to it. So I know Tony Kelly's podcast is available in different formats, and it's called Me Head Is Wrecked. So if you just type in Me Head Is Wrecked into any Google search engine, you'll find different ways of accessing that. John Hegarty is joining me now. John, good morning.
Hi there.
You're not John O'Connor?
I'm not. No. That's the other co-founder.
Do you want to pretend? No,
no, I don't think I will. He'll definitely know by the accent.
Is he listening? He might be.
Definitely by podcast later, maybe.
You are co-founder, CEO, one of the...
I'm COO.
CEO.
Yeah, John's CEO.
Very good. Of Collect. That's KOLLECT, On Demand. Tell us a little bit about the company, please.
So Collect is a platform for getting waste picked up, any type of waste. We started back in December 2015 with myself, John O'Connor and Robbie Scoose. We've been going 4 years now. And there's about 40 employees now. We do nationwide skip hire, nationwide junk removal, and probably what we're best known for here is our bin collection.
There's business in waste.
There is, yeah.
Business in rubbish.
Yeah, I could never imagine myself have gotten into the waste
When you were
industry.
growing up, you didn't say, I want to be a bin man.
Yeah, my background was in engineering, so it was
really
strange. Yeah. I studied out in WIT.
And how did you get into this?
So I got a degree in sustainable energy engineering, and there wasn't many jobs going. The closest I get is London, and I was friends with John O'Connor at the time, and John, an absolute an entrepreneur to the bone, and he convinced me to join him in another previous startup. So we had started another company, got Robbie Scouse involved, and it was actually after that. This is our second company that we've had together.
Does Collect take asbestos? Somebody just texted.
No, we don't. It's something we will get into, but not right now.
Not right now. Other people praising you. Noeline says, yeah, we've used your service and very, very good. The reason we have you in is you've just been approved for the Nasdaq Stockholm Stock Exchange for admission into the trading there. Why? Tell us about this.
Well, we recently scaled into the UK, and it was something we were going to try. We've taken very little, not very little, but we've taken about €150,000 investment up to now, which allowed us to scale nationwide and dip our feet into the UK. And once we did that, we saw that, listen, this is something that is going to work over there, or what we feel is going to work over there. And the UK is so big, we said to ourselves, well, we're not going to be able to do this on budget. We want to do this right. So it's important to go and get further investment. So we looked into a few different routes. We looked at the venture capitalist route, which are large companies that do nothing but invest money in startups or established businesses. We looked at taking private money, which is high net worth individuals, and then we looked at going public. So we decided that going public probably was the best way for us, and then it was a decision about where we do it. We decided on the Nasdaq First North because, well, it's got the Nasdaq name. Nasdaq is something that most people know. It's got that trust. So as we scale into the UK and scale further afield, we've got that Nasdaq brand behind us, which we feel will help us.
So this will actually be an offering of shares to the public through an initial public offering, and it mentions Stockholm, so it's Sweden, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically you're going to be on the Swedish Stock Exchange.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
And that'll work, will it?
Yeah. It's
why wouldn't you go with the Irish Stock Exchange?
Well, the Irish doesn't have the Nasdaq brand. Also, there's a culture in Sweden of investing in shares that doesn't exist here as much. Now, it does seem to be changing because as soon as we actually told people that we were doing this, we had so many people, particularly a lot of customers, coming in and going, oh, listen, this is really, really exciting. Can we find out more? And can we invest in this? And the bottom line is anyone can invest in this. That's kind of why we've raised most of the money now over in Sweden already. And
What have you raised?
We're raising 2.5.
2.5 million.
Yeah. So we've raised most of it over in Sweden already. But because once we announced it here, we got so much interest, we were like, let's do a small roadshow here in Ireland to give Irish people the opportunity to invest.
Is there a minimum amount that...
about €550.
€550. Would that include stockbrokers' fees, or is that just purely on the shares?
I think if they get it... do you know what? I'm not 100% sure. My understanding of it is that it doesn't... if they get in... Don't
well, we'll go through this. Yeah, you're not breaking any stock exchange rules. Any Swedish listeners, please turn off.
If they get in now, I don't think there is. But once we actually list publicly, then there is. That's my understanding.
Yeah, that could well be the case. Sure. Yeah, I don't have shares myself. I did economics in college, and that could well be the case. It also depends on different stock exchanges. They have different rules, and stockbrokers' fees can apply differently in different areas.
Generally, their fees do apply, but I have a feeling because we haven't listed yet, that you don't.
So let's say somebody has some money, and they say, okay, I can afford. Let's say if you have €1,000 in savings, okay, I'll take this, and they can just literally contact a stockbroking firm in Ireland. Can they contact yourselves? What
we're doing is we've got a roadshow going on, so we have a couple of events on where people can come find out more and they can register there. So we're in the Westbury tomorrow.
It's in Dublin.
Exactly,
You can get past the farmers.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, I forgot about that, yeah. So it's on at 1 o'clock, and then we have another one at 6 o'clock. If you can't make that, we've got one actually here in Waterford.
The Granville?
On Friday at 7:30 in the morning, and then another one in the Granville at 1 o'clock on Friday too.
Okay, so the Granville Hotel in Waterford, for anybody locally wants to hear about this, and obviously to contact the company.
Yeah, if they want to get in touch with us, info@collect.ie, that's KOLLECT. We'd be happy to speak to people. We're really, really excited about it.
Briefly, one of the things just coincidentally we were doing this morning was rats and rent-a-kill and all that sort of stuff. Have you ever come across rats when you're cleaning or moving stuff out?
I know some of the guys have. Yeah, like what we actually try to do is when you're scaling nationally, what we are trying to do is we either franchise out or obviously we have our own trucks here in Waterford, but everywhere else we actually use third parties. So we pass the jobs on to other people. It's easier to scale that way. But we do come across it and it's not pleasant. It's definitely not pleasant.
I just hate them.
No, I wouldn't be a big fan.
No. Listen, John, continued success. Thank you very much for coming into us. I hope Thanks. It works well. How long do people have, for example, when will this particular range of the offer close?
This closes. It's actually very short. It's 2 weeks. It opened Monday. So it'll close Monday, 2 weeks. So it's quite short. Then we'll be public after that. So if anyone is interested, it is important to get in contact with us or even try to make one of those events. You can, if you want to register for those events, they can go to eventbrite.ie and you can register there.
John, thank you very much. John Hegarty, and hello to John O'Connor as well. And hello to everybody working in the
John,
company.
Hey, Robbie.
And Robbie as well. I've interviewed Robbie before. Continued success. Genuinely mean that.
Appreciate
okay, well done. Good luck. Now, a lot of texts and comments coming in. I'm going to go to Lynn Glasgow in a second. Firstly, emails about Black Friday and things like that. A caller just out of Harvey Norman. She bought AirPods for her daughter online for Christmas and discovered the payment had been taken 4 times. So this is obviously nothing to do with the online the local shops. It's got to do with the online system. That's €183 multiplied by 4. This lady says she thinks she's not the only one. She's urging people to check their statements. They can't tell when the money will be refunded. Now, that's a very difficult situation because obviously everybody only has a certain amount of money, and if something has been taken 4 times out of your account, now they will give it back, but when's it going to be refunded, we just don't know. Another person texting about online shopping with Debenhams. You get a jacket and perfume online from Debenhams. Perfume apparently was reduced to €55. The jacket arrived with no perfume. The lady gave it around 4 days and contacted them, but they told that there was an issue with the order. They could reorder the perfume for €104. We won't be online shopping again, says this person. People still ringing in about the texts regarding the rats. One big issue, says this person, is if they put black plastic bags, some people in our housing estate don't put food bins out, but they throw out black sacks at the side of the door for months. This is what causes rat infestation. Others then texting in about farmers giving out, saying farmers have some neck, and others are saying farmers are really protesting for their rights. Others saying that we should learn a lot or could learn a lot about the farmers and how the protest should be done. Others saying that, like everyone, farmers should get a pay rise. They don't get pay rises. Some people should have some consideration. So there's a lot of varying views on that. We'll come back to those in a second. Lynn, good morning.
Good morning to you, Damien.
Thanks for joining us. Lynn Glasgow, you're on the Green Energy. You're the candidate of the Green Party down in Lismore during the summer, wasn't that right?
That's right, during the May elections, there was indeed.
Yes.
And we had great support in Lismore.
And commiserations, you didn't get elected, but you're helping to organise and you're working obviously with the Green Party. There's an event taking place in Dungarvan tonight at 7:30, Greener Energy. Forget about the political aspects of things first. Just talk to me about very, very practical things that people can do. Who are you going to have talking to you tonight? How can people make their houses more efficient and more greener?
Well, in fact, it's greener energy in the community, and this was inspired by a couple of events that I visited during the year, one of which was Revitalising Rural Ireland, and I know that you were facilitating on that, Damien,
yes.
About EU support for communities. And the other one was Energy in Agriculture in Gerteen. That was a one-day event there and had a fantastic array of speakers, presentations, etc., but also a vast collection of suppliers of products and services in the energy sector. And that's basically what has inspired this, because there is lots of support out there for greener energy in the community, for both individuals and for community projects. And a lot of people don't know about them. I didn't know about them. I went out there on a fact-finding mission, and I have found we have, talking this evening, we've got Liam Fleming, who's from the Waterford Energy Bureau. He's going to be talking about domestic schemes supported by SEAI. And then we have Jane Wickham, who's 3CEA Sustainable Energy Communities. She's a mentor for any communities that look to actually get a sustainable energy project. And she's going to be talking about the Better Energy Community Grant Scheme. And I also have Greg Allen from Community Power. He's going to be talking about, what the possibilities are about empowering communities in terms of what they can do with any energy that they produce.
Yeah. The phone line isn't the greatest, so we won't stay on too long, but there are obviously experts in the field that are going to be talking tonight. It's on in the Park Hotel. It's starting at 7:30 this evening. Grace O'Sullivan is going to be there to give a special introduction, is she?
No, we've got Grace by video because she's over in Brussels
Okay.
At the moment. Yeah.
So you'll have her there by video. Very simply, do you think it's catching on? Do you think people will be interested and communities are interested in making a difference?
I think that if people actually find out what support there is available, what grants there are available for both domestic and community projects, that this will take on. There have been a number of towns around the country who are doing extremely well with these types of community projects, and individuals, of course, who are also making their own arrangements regarding any energy support.
Yeah. And would you, Lynn, live 600 metres from a wind turbine?
Yes.
Would you?
I think that, tonight is not about wind. We're actually talking about sort of better energy homes and better energy in the community. So wind is always one of the options, but that's not basically what we're talking about tonight.
So if anybody wants to go and give out about wind, tonight is not the night. Definitely not tonight. Tonight is a night to learn about other issues, yeah?
Yes, indeed. I mean, it is basically sort of what's available out there in the terms of grant support. I mean, if it comes to any sustainable energy, I mean, the Greens are very much in support of community involvement in any major energy.
Lynn, thanks very much for joining us and good luck with your meeting tonight.
Okay, thanks a lot, Damien.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's Lynn Glasgow there from Lismore, and the meeting's on in the Park Hotel in Dungarvan tonight. Damien, thank you very much for your programme yesterday and the first half of the programme today, talking about matters of abuse and how to deal with it. As you know, it hit a raw nerve with me and a lot of other people. People need to talk about it. Thank you for listening. That is a text in from a person. Caller in from a Tramore said he was quoted a certain amount of money from Collect to take away a three-piece suit and armchairs, and he got a cheaper deal with Green Star. And that happens. You will get cheaper deals in different companies. There may be different ways of delivering. So Collect recognise that, and they're part of, I suppose, a lot of people competing for business. Other people texting in about speed limits. An email in to Deise today at WRFM.com. Can you ask Damien, please, to remind listeners of the speed limits around Waterford? The new legislation is coming. Near the city, it's either 50 kilometres or 60 kilometres. Outside the city, sometimes there are reduces to this. Maximum 80 kilometres all the way to Tramore, Dunmore, Kilmeaden. This emailer said, I regularly get fists waving, lights flashing, etc. because I'm obeying the speed limit. It's okay for experienced drivers, but not fair to learners and inexperienced or maybe some older people. Let us know what you think about that. We're going to be doing more on that later in the week. Another texter in: farmers are necessary and should be helped to improve their farms and subsidised. Most farms average 50 acres, which if sold wouldn't provide a decent pension or a support for a family. That is from Peter in Waterford. Now, thank you everybody for your texts and comments. Izzy has texted in to say, please give Tony my very best regards. Thanks everybody for texting into the programme. Thank you to Julie for producing. Jeff is up next. I particularly want to thank Tony Kelly for coming in this morning and for telling his story. And as I said, his podcast is available. Me Head is Wrecked. It's on Spotify. It's on iTunes. You can access it through, I think, different websites. All the very best. Have a great day. We are back tomorrow with a lot more.
On your marks.